I used to think love meant standing by someone no matter what, that it meant holding their hand through the darkness and never letting go. I believed my wife when she promised to be there in sickness and in health. But the day I sat alone in that chemotherapy chair watching the poison drip into my veins while staring at the empty seat beside me, I learned a different truth. Some people only love you when it is convenient. When the storms come, they run. That empty chair told me everything I needed to know about the woman I married. Before I tell you how I survived the worst betrayal of my life, I want to know where you are watching from. Drop your location in the comments, hit that like button and subscribe, because what happened next will show you that sometimes karma writes the perfect ending. Let me take you back to where this all began. My name is Stuart, and 4 years ago I thought I had everything figured out. I was 30 years old, working as a software engineer in Seattle, pulling in a decent salary and living in a cozy apartment with a view of the lake. But none of that mattered as much as coming home to Amanda every night. She was my wife, my best friend, the person I trusted more than anyone in the world. We had been married for 4 years, and I genuinely believed we would grow old together. Amanda had this way of lighting up a room. She had brown hair that caught the sunlight just right, and when she smiled, really smiled, her whole face transformed. She worked in marketing for a local firm, always busy with campaigns and client meetings. Our life together was simple, but beautiful. Weekend mornings I would make pancakes while she brewed coffee, and we would sit by the window watching boats drift across the lake. Evenings were for cooking dinner together, trying new recipes we found online, laughing when things went wrong. We talked about having kids maybe in a year or two. We talked about buying a house with a backyard. We talked about forever. Then my body started betraying me. It started small, so small I almost ignored it. I felt tired all the time, even after a full night of sleep. I chalked it up to long hours at work, too much screen time, not enough exercise. But then I started losing weight without trying. 15 pounds disappeared in 2 months. My clothes hung loose. My face looked gaunt in the mirror. And there was this pain in my chest, sharp and persistent, especially when I took deep breaths. Amanda noticed before I wanted to admit anything was wrong. One morning in early September, she watched me wince as I reached for my coffee mug. "You need to see a doctor, babe. This is not normal." She was right, of course, but I was scared. I was 30 years old. Young people do not get seriously sick, right? That is what I told myself. But her concern pushed me to make an appointment. The tests started on September 15th. First, a simple chest X-ray that showed something the doctor did not like. Then a CT scan that revealed more details. Then a biopsy that confirmed everyone's worst fear. I remember sitting in Dr. Patterson's office, a sterile room with diplomas on the wall and a box of tissues on the desk. He was a serious man, an oncologist with graying hair and kind eyes. He did not sugarcoat it. "You have lung cancer, Stuart. Stage 2. It has not metastasized, which is good news, but we need to start treatment immediately." The room spun. Cancer. That word belonged to other people, older people, people who had lived full lives. Not me. Not at 30. Amanda squeezed my hand so hard I thought my bones might break. I looked at her, and she had tears streaming down her face, but she nodded like she was making a promise. "We will fight this together. I am not going anywhere." That night we drove home in silence. When we got to our apartment, we held each other and cried. But we also talked about hope. Dr. Patterson had laid out a treatment plan. 6 months of chemotherapy combined with radiation therapy. It would be brutal, he warned, but I was young and otherwise healthy. The odds were in my favor if we acted fast. Amanda and I made plans. We rearranged our schedules. She talked to her boss about working from home more often. I took a leave of absence from work. We transformed our spare bedroom into a recovery space with extra pillows and a comfortable chair. We bought books about fighting cancer, about nutrition, about staying positive. We were a team. My first chemotherapy session was on October 1st. Amanda drove me to the hospital early in the morning. The infusion center was a large room with rows of recliners, each one occupied by someone fighting their own battle. Rachel, the nurse who would become familiar over the next months, greeted us with a warm smile. She explained everything as she inserted the IV into my arm. This is going to take about 4 hours. You might feel some nausea, fatigue, maybe some tingling in your fingers. Everyone reacts differently. Amanda sat beside me the entire time, holding my hand, reading to me from a book we had been enjoying together. Other patients had visitors too. I saw an elderly couple, the husband in the chair and the wife feeding him crackers. I saw a young woman with her mother, both of them working on a crossword puzzle. I felt lucky to have Amanda. The side effects hit me within days. Nausea became my constant companion. Food tasted like metal, or like nothing at all. I was exhausted in a way I had never experienced, a bone-deep tiredness that made lifting my head from the pillow feel like climbing a mountain. Amanda tried her best. She cooked bland foods I could keep down. She brought me ginger tea. She rubbed my back when I spent hours hunched over the toilet. But something started to shift. It was subtle at first, so subtle I thought I was imagining it. Amanda spent more time on her phone texting and scrolling even when we were supposed to be watching a movie together. She started coming to bed later, saying she had work to catch up on. When I asked about her day, her answers became shorter, less detailed. I am just tired, babe. Work has been crazy. I noticed other things too. She dressed nicer on days when she went into the office, taking extra time with her makeup and hair. Her phone was always face down on the table now, and she had changed the password. When I mentioned it casually, she said she needed better security for work emails. It made sense. I was probably being paranoid. Cancer does that to you, makes you see problems that are not there. By the 8th week of treatment in mid-November, the changes became harder to ignore. Amanda arrived late to pick me up after chemotherapy twice. The second time she did not show up at all, and I had to call a taxi while Rachel looked at me with pity in her eyes. When I got home and asked Amanda what happened, she barely looked up from her laptop. Work has been crazy. I am sorry. I forgot to set a reminder. I was too sick, too weak to push harder. My hair had started falling out in clumps. I shaved my head rather than watch it slowly disappear. My weight had dropped to 150 pounds. I looked in the mirror and barely recognized myself. Maybe that is why Amanda seemed distant. Maybe I was too hard to look at. The night everything fell apart was November 28th. I had just finished my 10th chemotherapy session. It was one of the worst ones yet. The nausea had been so severe that Rachel had to give me extra anti-nausea medication through the IV. I came home feeling like death, barely able to stand. I opened the door to our apartment and found Amanda in the bedroom with a suitcase on the bed folding clothes. "Where are you going?" My voice came out hoarse, confused. She did not stop packing. "I need some space, Stuart." "Space? What do you mean space? I need you. I am sick." She finally looked at me, and what I saw in her eyes was not love or concern. It was frustration, maybe even resentment. That is exactly the problem. I cannot do this anymore. Cannot do what this. Her hand gestured vaguely at me at the apartment at our life. "I cannot watch you like this every day. I cannot handle it." My legs felt weak. I sat down on the edge of the bed trying to process her words. "You said you would be here. You promised. I know what I said. But I did not know it would be this hard. I did not know you would look like this, that it would go on for so long." Something in her tone made me ask the question I had been avoiding. "Is there someone else?" Her silence was the answer. Then she started crying, but they were not tears of guilt. They were tears of frustration, of someone who felt trapped and was finally breaking free. "His name is Dylan. He is my ex from before I met you. We broke up 5 years ago, but he reached out 2 months ago. We have been talking. 2 months ago. Right when my treatment started." Amanda wiped her eyes. "He has always been there for me, Stuart. And right now, I need someone strong. Someone who can take care of me for a change. Take care of you." I stared at her, not believing what I was hearing. "I have cancer, Amanda. I am fighting for my life. I know. And I am sorry, I really am. But you are not the man I married anymore. You are sick and weak, and I cannot be strong enough for both of us. Those words cut deeper than any surgeon's knife ever could. She continued packing, moving around me like I was just another piece of furniture. She took her clothes, her toiletries, her laptop. She pulled her wedding ring off her finger and set it down on the kitchen table with a small clink that echoed through the silent apartment. Then she walked out the door, rolling her suitcase behind her, and did not look back. I sat there in the dark for hours, too shocked to move, too devastated to cry. The woman I loved, the woman I had built a life with, had abandoned me in my darkest hour. She chose someone else because I was not strong enough, not healthy enough, not good enough anymore. The next morning, I woke up alone. The apartment felt enormous and empty. I looked at my phone and saw the schedule for the day. Chemotherapy at 10 a.m. I thought about canceling, about just giving up. What was the point of fighting if I had already lost everything that mattered? But something stubborn in me refused to quit. I called Greg, my best friend from college. We had not talked in a few months because I had been so consumed with treatment and Amanda. I told him everything, my voice breaking halfway through. He showed up at my door within an hour. Pack a bag. You are staying with me until you get through this. I do not want to be a burden. Shut up, Stuart. You are my brother. You are never a burden. Greg drove me to chemotherapy that day, and every session after. He sat in the chair beside me, sometimes working on his laptop, sometimes just talking about nothing important. He made sure I ate even when food made me sick. He stayed up with me on the nights when the nausea was so bad I could not lie down, when I ended up on the bathroom floor waiting to vomit again. Rachel, my nurse, noticed Amanda was gone but never asked. She just brought me extra warm blankets and checked on me more often. The kindness of near strangers kept me going when the person who should have been there had vanished. I blocked Amanda's number. I blocked her on every social media platform. I did not want to know where she was or what she was doing. I could not afford to waste energy on her when I needed every ounce of strength to survive. The weeks blurred together. December came and went. Christmas was just another day of feeling sick. I spent it at Greg's apartment, unable to eat the dinner he carefully prepared, but grateful not to be alone. By January, my body had been through so much that I wondered if I would ever feel normal again. My weight had dropped to 140 pounds. My skin was pale and papery. My hands shook from the medication. But I kept showing up. Every chemotherapy appointment, every radiation session, every blood test and scan. I showed up because quitting was not an option. Not because I was brave, but because I refused to let cancer win. And somewhere deep down, I refused to let Amanda's betrayal be the thing that destroyed me. On the really hard nights when I was alone in Greg's guest room, unable to sleep because of the pain and nausea, I would think about what Amanda said. You are not the man I married anymore. She was right, but not in the way she meant. The man she married would have been devastated, broken, unable to function. But the man cancer was creating was stronger than I ever knew I could be. I was learning that I could survive anything, even completely alone. By March, I had completed most of my treatment. Dr. Patterson ordered new scans. We sat in his office again, me and Greg, waiting for results. Dr. Patterson came in with a slight smile. The tumors are shrinking significantly. You are responding well to treatment, Stuart. Keep going. April brought spring, and something I had stopped believing in. Hope. My final chemotherapy session was on April 10th. Rachel hugged me when it was over, tears in her eyes. You did it. You fought so hard. 2 weeks later, I had my follow-up appointment with Dr. Patterson. He reviewed my latest scans with a smile that reached his eyes this time. Stuart, the cancer is in remission. There are no detectable cancer cells. You beat it. I broke down in his office. Greg put his arm around my shoulders while I sobbed with relief, exhaustion, and the overwhelming realization that I had survived. I had fought cancer alone and won. Recovery was gradual but steady. My hair grew back darker than before, and with a few gray strands I had not earned yet. I started eating normally again, and the weight slowly returned to my frame. By May, I felt strong enough to go to the gym. Just walking on a treadmill at first, but it felt like a victory. Greg convinced me to move into my own place again in June. Not the apartment I had shared with Amanda that held too many ghosts. A new one-bedroom across town, smaller, but with big windows that let in the morning sun. I decorated it myself, choosing things that made me happy. No compromises, no trying to match someone else's taste. Just mine. I went back to work part-time in July, easing into it. My boss had been incredibly understanding, holding my position open. My co-workers welcomed me back with genuine warmth. Some of them had sent cards during my treatment donations to cancer research in my name. People I barely knew had shown me more kindness than my own wife. I started running. Just short distances at first, but it felt amazing to move my body again, to feel strong instead of weak. I joined a local running group that met Saturday mornings by the lake. That is where I met Sarah. She worked for a nonprofit that supported cancer patients and their families. She was there running for training, preparing for a charity marathon. We started talking after the runs, grabbing coffee at the shop near the trail. Sarah had lost her father to cancer when she was 23. She understood loss and survival in a way most people did not. We became friends easily, naturally, with no pressure or expectations. She made me laugh again, something I had forgotten how to do. By August, almost a year had passed since Amanda left. I had not thought about her in weeks. My life had rebuilt itself into something better than before. I had my health back. I had my job. I had real friends who had proven their loyalty. I had peace. Then my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Stuart, we need to talk. Please." I knew it was Amanda before I even opened the message to confirm. My first instinct was to delete it and block the number. But curiosity got the better of me. What could she possibly want? After a year of silence, more messages followed over the next few days. I made a terrible mistake. "I am so sorry. Please, Stuart, I need to talk to you." I did not respond. But on a Thursday afternoon, she showed up at my office. The receptionist called me, sounding uncertain. "There is an Amanda here to see you. She says it is important." My stomach tightened. I almost told her to send Amanda away. But I wanted closure, wanted to hear what excuse she could possibly offer. "I will be right down." The woman waiting in the lobby barely resembled the Amanda I remembered. She had lost weight, but not in a healthy way. Her face was gaunt with dark circles under her eyes. Her clothes were wrinkled. Her hair, once shiny and carefully styled, hung limp around her face. She looked like someone who had been through her own kind of hell. "Can we talk? Just for a few minutes?" I suggested a coffee shop down the street, neutral and public. We sat across from each other at a small table by the window. She ordered nothing. I got a black coffee I did not really want, just to have something to do with my hands. Amanda started talking, the words tumbling out like she had been holding them in for too long. Dylan was amazing at first. He was attentive and romantic and said all the right things. For 3 months I thought I had made the right choice. I said nothing, just let her continue. Then things changed. He started wanting to know where I was all the time. He went through my phone. He did not want me seeing my friends, said they were bad influences. I thought he was just protective, that he cared. She laughed bitterly. I was so stupid. Amanda wrapped her arms around herself. He had gambling debts. Serious ones. He needed money constantly. I gave him my savings, thinking it was temporary, that he would pay me back. $40,000, Stuart. Everything I had. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no pity. Just a strange numbness. Then he met someone else. Someone younger. Someone with more money to drain. He kicked me out. It was his house, so legally he could. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I lost my job because I was so stressed I could not function. I am staying with a friend right now on her couch. I have nothing. Why are you telling me this? Because I realize now what I gave up. What you went through fighting cancer alone, that took real strength. I could not even handle a bad relationship. She reached across the table like she might touch my hand, but I pulled back. I still love you, Stuart. I made a horrible mistake. Please, can we try again? I will do anything. I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt absolutely nothing. No love, No anger, not even satisfaction that karma had found her. Just emptiness where she used to matter. Amanda, when I needed you most, you walked away. You chose someone else because I was not strong enough for you. I know. I was wrong. I spent 6 months fighting for my life completely alone. I lost my hair, my weight, almost everything. But I found something more valuable. I found out who I really am. I found out what I am capable of. I can be there for you now. I have learned. No. I shook my head. You did not leave because you could not handle my cancer. You left because you never truly loved me. Love does not abandon people in their darkest hour. Love does not walk away when things get hard. Love stays. Amanda started crying, but I felt no urge to comfort her. I forgive you, Amanda. Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. I deserve to let go of what you did to me. But I will never take you back. That chapter of my life is closed and locked. You do not get to come back now that your choices have consequences. I stood up, pulled out a $20 bill from my coffee, and placed it on the table. I hope you figure things out. I hope you learn from this. But you will do it without me. Stuart, please. I walked out of the coffee shop and did not look back. My phone buzzed a few times with more messages from her, but I blocked the number. That was the last time I ever saw or heard from Amanda. The months after that final meeting with Amanda were the most peaceful of my life. I had expected to feel something, regret or doubt or lingering pain, but there was nothing. Closure felt like the sun breaking through clouds after a long storm. I was free. The first few weeks, I admit, there were moments late at night when memories would surface. Not of Amanda, but of who I thought she was. The woman I married existed only in my imagination, a fiction I had believed in. The real Amanda had shown herself when times got tough, and I was grateful the mask had fallen when it did. Better to know during cancer treatment than 20 years down the road. I threw myself into living. I continued running, pushing my distances longer each week. By October, I ran my first 10-kilometer race. Sarah was there at the finish line, cheering louder than anyone. We had grown closer over the months, our coffee meetups turning into dinners, our conversations deepening beyond the surface. She knew about Amanda, about the betrayal, and she never pushed me for more than I was ready to give. What I appreciated most about Sarah was her patience. She understood that I needed time to trust again, to believe that someone could love me at my worst, and not just my best. She had seen her father at his sickest, had held his hand through his final days, and she knew what real love looked like. It looked like showing up. It looked like staying. I also joined a support group for cancer survivors. It met every Tuesday evening in a church basement, a circle of folding chairs and coffee that tasted like hot water. The people there became unexpected friends. We shared our stories, our fears, our small victories. I met a man named Harold, 55 years old, whose wife had left him during his prostate cancer treatment. He understood my pain in a way most people could not. We are the lucky ones, he told me one evening after group. We found out who they really were before we wasted any more years. I started volunteering at the hospital where I had received treatment, visiting patients undergoing chemotherapy. Rachel, my former nurse, helped coordinate it. I would sit with people who were alone, just being present, sometimes talking, sometimes just existing in the same space. I told them my story when they asked. I told them you could survive the treatment and the betrayal both. One afternoon in December, a mutual friend from my old life mentioned Amanda in passing. She had moved back to California to live with her parents. She was working retail, trying to rebuild her life from scratch. Dylan had been arrested for fraud and outstanding debts. The friend seemed to expect some reaction from me, maybe satisfaction or vindication. I hope she finds peace, I said, and I meant it. Not because I forgave what she did, but because carrying anger about it would only hurt me. She was living her consequences. I was living my freedom. Sarah and I made our relationship official that winter. There was no dramatic moment, just a quiet conversation on her couch after dinner. We both knew what we wanted, and we were both ready. She moved into my apartment in January 2 years after my diagnosis. We talked about the future carefully, honestly, without the naive certainty I had had in my first marriage. We talked about hard times and how we would face them together. In March, I ran my first marathon. 26.2 miles through Seattle past the lake where Amanda and I used to watch the boats through downtown, where I used to work, ending near the hospital where I had fought for my life. Sarah and Greg were both at the finish line. When I crossed it exhausted and triumphant, I thought about the journey from a hospital bed to this moment. If someone had told me 3 years ago that I would be here, I would not have believed them. My health remained stable. Every 3-month checkup with Dr. Patterson brought good news. No signs of cancer. My body had healed. I had gained back the weight, adding muscle from all the running. My hair had grown in thicker than before. I looked healthy, strong, alive. Work promoted me to senior engineer. They cited my dedication, my problem-solving skills, my leadership on difficult projects. They had no idea that cancer had taught me those things. When you fight for your life, workplace challenges become almost laughably small. Difficult clients, tight deadlines, technical problems, none of it fazed me anymore. I had faced death and won. Everything else was just details. Greg remained my closest friend. He never let me forget that I had people who loved me, who would always show up. We made it a tradition to have dinner every Sunday, just the two of us talking about everything and nothing. He had saved my life in a way that had nothing to do with medicine and everything to do with presence. One evening in late spring, almost exactly 3 years after my diagnosis, I sat on my balcony watching the sunset. Sarah was inside making dinner. I could hear her humming to herself, something she did when she was happy. I thought about Amanda, briefly wondering where she was, how she was doing. Then I let the thought drift away like smoke. She was not part of my life anymore, not even as a memory that caused pain. What I had learned, what cancer and betrayal had taught me, was this: you are stronger than you know. You can survive things you never imagined surviving. The people who leave during your storms were never meant to be there for your sunshine. And sometimes the worst thing that happens to you becomes the catalyst for the best thing. I learned that forgiveness is not about the other person. Amanda probably did not even know I had forgiven her, and it did not matter. Forgiveness was about releasing the weight of anger and resentment that I had been carrying. It was about choosing peace over bitterness. It was about freeing myself from the past so I could fully live in the present. I learned that karma is not about revenge. I did not need to punish Amanda. Life did that on its own. Dylan taught her the same lesson she taught me, that people who abandon you when things get hard will eventually be abandoned themselves. I took no joy in her suffering, but I also felt no obligation to rescue her from the consequences of her choices. I learned that love, real love, is not tested during the good times. Anyone can love you when you are healthy and happy and easy to be with. Real love shows up when you are sick, when you are difficult, when you have nothing left to give. Real love stays. Sarah taught me that. Greg taught me that. Rachel and Dr. Patterson and the strangers in the support group taught me that. Amanda taught me what love is not. Most importantly, I learned to love myself. Not in a selfish way, but in a way that recognized my own worth. I learned that I deserved someone who would fight for me the way I had fought for my own life. I learned that being alone was infinitely better than being with someone who saw me as a burden. I learned that I could be my own hero. 3 years after sitting alone in that chemotherapy chair staring at the empty seat beside me, I ran a marathon. I built a new life. I found real love. I discovered strength I never knew existed. And I did it all because Amanda left. If she had stayed out of obligation, resenting me every day, we would have limped along in a broken marriage. I would have recovered from cancer, but remained sick in spirit, living with someone who saw me as less than I was. Her leaving, as brutal and painful as it was, freed me to become who I was always meant to be. So when people ask if I am angry at Amanda, the answer is no. I am grateful. She showed me the truth when I needed to see it. She taught me that I could survive anything. She gave me the gift of knowing exactly who she was, so I did not waste any more of my life on a lie. Sometimes the worst betrayals lead to the best transformations. Sometimes losing everything means gaining yourself. Sometimes the people who hurt you the most end up being your greatest teachers, not because they meant to be, but because pain has a way of burning away everything false until only truth remains. I do not know where Amanda is now, and I do not need to. My life is full without her, fuller than it ever was with her. I have work that challenges me, friends who stand by me, a partner who loves me through anything, and most importantly, I have myself. I have proven to myself that I am enough, that I am strong, that I can face whatever comes. If you are going through something similar, if someone has abandoned you when you needed them most, hear this. Let them go. Do not beg them to stay. Do not lower yourself to convince someone of your worth. The people who leave during your storms do not deserve your sunshine. And the sunshine that comes after, when you have rebuilt yourself from nothing, is brighter than you can imagine because you created it yourself. Fight for yourself. Love yourself. Show up for yourself every single day. The right people will notice and join you. The wrong people will leave, and you will be better for it. Trust the process even when it hurts, especially when it hurts, because that pain is transforming you into who you were always meant to become. I survived cancer. I survived betrayal. I survived the darkest period of my life completely alone, and it made me realize that I was never really alone. I had myself, and that was enough. Everything else, everyone else who matters, was just the bonus that came from learning to stand on my own. So if you are fighting your own battle right now, keep going. If someone walked away from you when you needed them, keep going. If you feel broken and lost and unsure if you will ever be whole again, keep going. You will not just survive, you will transform. And one day you will look back and realize that the worst thing that ever happened to you was actually the beginning of your best life. Have you ever had someone walk away during your hardest time? How did you rebuild? Drop your story in the comments, because your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And if this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe so you do not miss future stories about overcoming life's toughest challenges. Share this with someone who needs to hear that they are stronger than they know. Thank you for listening to my story, and I truly hope you find your own strength, your own peace, and your own transformation. Life is tough, but you are tougher. Keep fighting.